Before we do anything else, we have to measure the spindle length from the end of the spindle to the surface that we want the wooden chuck to butt up against. I'll take that measurement and we'll add about 1/8 of an inch to make sure that the chuck seats firmly against this before the threads bottom out in the hole. Okay, mounted the blank in the chuck. Notice that the grain runs across the piece. We're not drilling into the end grain. You can't cut threads into the end grain on wood because that just leaves tiny little unsupported points that'll just snap off. Okay, now we're going to start the lathe up at a slow speed and drill a hole and take it down to the mark we made on the shaft to make sure we're deep enough. I've set the lathe to run at about 225 RPM and we're using an 1 1/8" Forstner bit to drill the pilot hole. The threads on this spindle are 1¼ inch by 8, so we have to go 1/8 inch smaller for the pilot hole. To get the tab started, we insert it in the pilot hole and then bring the live center up and put that point in the hole in the back of the tap. To actually cut the threads, we put an open-end wrench on the tap, turn that in, and as the tap goes in, we wheel up the tailstock plunger to maintain just a little bit of pressure on it. Every once in a while, we back the tap up just to clear the chips, and then just continue on. By maintaining just a little bit of pressure on the back of the tap with the live center, we make sure that the tap goes in perfectly straight. Okay, the tap is bottomed out, so we'll back off the tailstock and carefully bring the tap back out. And when we take the tap out, we should have a set of clean threads in there. We'll blow the threads out just a little bit, make sure there's no chips left in there, and then we'll try it on the spindle. I removed the chuck, left the spindle locked. Let's see how our new block threads on. Threads on very easy, tightens up at the end because the threads are tapered on the inside. And we're ready to go. I've unlocked the spindle and plugged the lathe back in. Now let's spin up the new block and see how close to center it really is. It's a bit over 500 RPM and it's running pretty true. I made this chuck out of this block because I had it sitting around, but you can make them much larger. All you have to worry about is if it fits on the lathe. Now we can go ahead and shape this for whatever job you have. I think I'm going to wind up putting a snout on here for making small boxes, maybe some like needle vials. But you can do just about anything with these. Your imagination is what's going to slow you down.